And we are live. Conversations with Andrew Davis. So pleased to have you on. So, James Smith Academy head coach, got his own business and his own PT business. He works with children and their mindset psychology, works with lots of other adults in the same thing. He's an Ironman, or you are an Ironman, which is the words that I want to hear at some point in my life. And he's currently there's lots of lifting, CrossFit, BJJ. So there's so much to explore, and we've just had a very in-depth 15-minute conversation, and I was just itching to press record and get it on tape, as they say. So welcome, mate.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. Glad you reached out. So yeah, man, let's get into it, man.
So let's maybe just start with you were talking to me about Ironman, and now I see this like it's my lifetime goal. I'd love to do it, and you know I'm 6'8" and 135 kilograms, but I'm gonna get there. There's no way that's gonna stop me. But which Ironman did you do?
It's Texas. It was in Galveston. April 2017 in Galveston.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you heard those words and you crossed the finish line?
I'll be completely honest with you, man. Like I think in the mindset when you're gonna when you think that you're gonna get something out of the end result of a goal, I think that's kind of, I think in a certain way that kind of almost sets you up for failure. It is a very good achievement. It was a very good achievement. I was really proud of the fact that I did that, and I committed to the 8 months of training. But I got more out of looking back when I finished of how much time and effort that I put into actually preparation. And I prepared so much for that event that I can, for once in my life, say that I was super excited as I sat in the water before the gun went off. I was excited. I was in like the water, like splashing around like a little kid, waiting for the gun to go off. And it was like 6 a.m. It was cold. We're in water. It was an uncomfortable situation. And you're about to start a really, really long race. And you're about to be, racing for half the day pretty much. And I remember being super excited before the event started. And most of the time before any athletic competition, in my experience, I've done a lot of different competitions. I've always been nervous. And I think that told me that it could have been lack of preparation from a younger, immature age of being an athlete and not preparing as much as I should and being ready for competition. But that was one time in my life I can look back and say, man, I really prepared, and I'm proud that I did everything I did to have that really excited feeling of just doing the event. And and it was good, and when you cross the finish line, you think you're going to have this like amazing like revelation in your mind. But like I said before, the weeks following was when it really hit me. It was like, man, I really put all that effort into training and all those hours. And it was a really good feeling of reassuring that I had that mentality that if I wanted to reach a certain goal, no matter what it was and how unrealistic in my mind, when I said it could be, that I could actually accomplish it if I took it step by step and broke it down into small steps as opposed to looking at it from start to finish. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they set goals and they only focus on the end result. And the magic and all this special stuff happens during the process, man. You know what I mean? Learning lessons, gaining resilience, doing things when you don't want to do them. You know what I mean? Like learning how to cope with, injuries, like recovery, learning how to adapt. And, certain days when rain and stuff would happen and elements that you can't control, it teaches you a lot about controlling environment and controlling situations, and shows you how much lack of control you have over certain things. When it rained, I couldn't run sometimes, so I'd have to switch my training up that day. So learning how to be flexible. So you learn a lot of life lessons just in the training. Yeah, it was a good experience, man. I'll do it again. I have the itch again to do it. It's expensive though, man. It's a very, very expensive habit, sport. Just a pop tire, man. I don't know how many tires I went through in the training. That's $80, $100, $120 right there.
Yeah.
Every time a tire pops, it's $120.
What was your time? Can you remember?
Man, people have asked me that so many times, man. I don't remember, man. I honestly don't remember my time. I don't remember. I didn't even get happy about, like, I got the medal, and it was a different experience, man. The fun part of it was just in the middle of the event when you like meet people while you're riding and training, like riding and like in the event, and like you form relationships with people while you're actually running and stuff. So yeah. And then the worst part about it was the recovery part from it, man. I think the initial shock from doing it, you still have adrenaline going through you for about 24 hours. And then after that, your body just goes through a period of just kind of breaks down, man. And the chafing was pretty bad. So, yeah. So 6'8" Ironman, man. If you did an Ironman, that's a feat for you. That's good, man.
I'm going for it. There's no way, nothing's going to stop me. I was ready for a sprint this year before COVID. I was a week out and it got cancelled. And I felt actually I'd probably outworked the training for that. I felt like maybe I could have done an Olympic. So I'm going to put an Olympic in this year, a half next, and then, an Olympic 2021, a half 2022, and then full 2023.
Yeah, get the sprints. You can, and you probably do those in training as well. Just do some sprints as training.
Yeah,
I think the Olympic distance would be a bread and butter distance for me in triathlon training. I think that's a fun distance because that's a distance where you can be competitive and kind of go after it. But with like an Ironman, I did not train properly for that. I did not train properly. I did not race it properly either as well. I didn't leave enough in the run, man. The run killed me. The run absolutely killed me. I remember about halfway into the run, the ligaments in the back of my legs, the back of my knees were so tight that I thought they were going to pop. Like so tight that I thought if I did a full stride and like I actually strided out, that they would probably pop in half. And they were all like that, every single one of them. Because, you sit on a bike for that long, man, in that position. It's tough.
Oh, brick training is hard. You get the jelly legs and you feel like you're going to fall over, and then you get the
bike
cramping.
transition to the running. Yeah, bike transition to the running. And I remember I was so tired from the bike, I got off and transitioned to the run, and I had a belt with water on it, like water containers. There's 4 of them. And right when I got on the run, man, 2 of them fell off, and I just was like, screw it, I'm leaving them. I wasn't even going to stop because I was so tired that I was like, if I stop and like go backwards, then I'm not going to want to keep going.
No. And there's so much that goes into it. But for anybody who doesn't know, so an Ironman distance is 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride to finish with a marathon.
20.2, yeah.
Yeah. So now people train for a marathon, but then you chuck that in the end of that. And I think they say that the swim gets you to the start line. The
swim's easy, man. The swim's amazing. The swim, honestly, I enjoyed it. I enjoy the swim. I enjoy swimming. I could swim all day long. I don't get tired. I absolutely love swimming. That was the fun part. The bike sucked. The bike ride sucked because it was windy and we were on a beach. I was going through a beach through like an island, and the sand, literally the sand on both sides of me was smashing me in the face. So like you feel like you're getting slapped the whole entire time you're riding. They almost canceled mine. There was a tropical depressionist, like tornado-ish weather, hurricane-ish weather on the coast that whole weekend. It was awful. And I wasn't planning on even racing. It was so nasty the night before that I was like, all right. So, I was just glad we got to get it in.
And then so you mentioned the recovery period being hard.
Yeah.
I've heard that lots of people end up going into almost depression afterwards because they've had this real purpose for 8 months, and then they come out the other side and no longer have they got that purpose, that they end up being in a dark space.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I did my Ironman, and it just turns out that right after I signed up for my Ironman, like literally as I was training for it, me and my now ex-wife that I have a child with in Australia, and the reason why I'm in Australia is when we started chatting again. We started talking again right at the first of my training. And I actually moved to Australia at the end of my after my Ironman. 10 days after my Ironman, I was in a plane trip moving to Australia to start my life with my new wife. So there was no time for me to have a depression period. I went from finishing that 10 days off, selling everything I own of my entire life, closing down a business, saying bye to family, and physically recovering. And then my ex-wife my ex-wife was with me as I did my race. And then she was with me up until about 4 days before I actually flew to Australia, and she came back before me. And then, I spent 4 days after that just selling the rest of my stuff, saying bye to family, and I was on a plane, and then I started a new life in Australia in April 2017. So
you didn't have time for that. You didn't have you still had the new purpose.
No, I had 3 months off as soon as I got to Australia, so I actually went on to like pretty much a vacation period, like a holiday. Because for visa, I couldn't. They don't allow people on bridging visas to work for 3 months. So it just so it deters like tourists from getting jobs over here and working. So so I didn't have time for it. But I guess purpose wise, when I moved to Australia, since I didn't have my bike here, shipping a bike over here is super expensive. I eventually shipped my bike over here. But I went from my triathlon goal, this unrealistic setting goal, this fictional goal that I've always kind of had, to back to weightlifting, because I fell out of weightlifting for quite a while. After I owned a CrossFit gym in the States for some time, and after I sold that and got out of CrossFit, I kind of fell out of love with CrossFit and weightlifting, and that's what kind of made me take on the other goal of triathlon. And then as I went back to Australia, I got back into weightlifting, because weightlifting in Australia and Sydney especially, CrossFit and Olympic lifting here is huge. So the culture just kind of calls for it. So I immediately got back into weightlifting.
And that's what you're doing now then?
Yeah. I would say I'm kind of a hybrid athlete. I'm not want to call myself an athlete, because I'm definitely not competing in any weightlifting events anytime soon. Actually, I take that back. Possibly could be doing an Olympic lifting event in the next year. But I do a little bit of CrossFit. I do a little bit of Olympic lifting, gymnastics. Every now and then I'll do like a bro session and throw around some chest and do some arms or something like that. But most of my lifting is centered around my Olympic lifting goals and then my squat. I have a pretty extensive squat goal of I want to squat 500 pounds naturally. I don't believe in steroids or taking shit to enhance anything. Every kilogram or pound I earn on a bar is natural, and I'm proud of that. So I've always wanted to squat 500 pounds naturally.
So you could try that. What was that CrossFit one where you challenged them to do 500 pound squat and a 4 mile run? Did you see that?
Oh, was that actual CrossFit event?
I don't know if it was, because I think it was who's the CrossFit leader at the moment, but I think he put it out as like, you'll never do this.
Matt Frazier?
No, one of the owners or directors. It doesn't really matter,
Dave
but
Castro, maybe?
Yeah, that's it.
Dave Castro.
He said it will never be done, and then I think somebody did it earlier this year. It's a 500 pound squat, 1 rep, but then straight out to a 4 mile run.
What is there, like a time barrier or time constraint?
I can't remember what it was, but I think there was a.
That's a heavy, man. Heavy. 227 kilograms. It's a big squat. I hit 200 last week, and then I know I can hit more than that already. So I'm gonna get there this next year. So all it is a matter of progression, man. Every week, just adding a little bit, man.
Yeah.
Just really, just like any kind of training. With Ironman, if you're not gonna hire a coach, I suggest buying a book and reading about the training modality, and then like the tapering. And if you do it the right way, you can really set yourself up for a fun time. But if you do it wrong, like I kind of did, I didn't really have the energy reserves I needed for the for the run. I kind of tanked during the run, and it was because I physically couldn't do anything. I just couldn't perform. I got to the point where I had to walk a little bit of it. So, which I'm okay with. It's all right.
You and hundreds of thousands of other people.
Dude, that's the thing, man. Like, that was another thing. You know, when I saw the people around, I was expecting to see just like absolute animal athletes, and you see just normal people, man. Any people can do extraordinary things, regardless of their height, weight, age. I mean, yeah, there are some limitations, but for the most part, I mean, people are capable, way more capable than what they allow themselves, man. We limit ourselves a lot in our head, and it's just that familiar pain cycle is that we return to what's familiar to us, even if it's painful or if it doesn't serve us, because it's familiar, and we want to proceed into the future with some level of confidence, and we want to know how things turn out, and we want to be confident about it. That's like an ego thing. And when you're not able to, we shy away from doing things because it's unfamiliar. And when you learn to get past that a little bit and kind of play with that a little bit and tease it a little bit and go over a little bit and understand that threshold, when you're aware of the threshold is the main thing, is to understand the threshold and just kind of go a little bit beyond it every time, but don't go way beyond it. Don't try to overcorrect, so to speak, and go way beyond it. When you can learn to do that, man, you can really progress in things. And it's you know, you got to track data a little bit and be mindful, but it's just being a little bit more clear on what you're doing. But yeah, with training, man, it goes for any goal.
You just mentioned tracking data there.
Yeah.
Triathletes,
yeah,
love a bit of data.
Yeah.
Do you like numbers?
Man, I do, man, to a certain extent. I do enjoy numbers to a certain extent. Now, I think it becomes a little obsessive. I choose my battles in life, and if it's like a client of mine or if it's like business related, like, yeah, I track data. But like if it's my own stuff and like for instance, my squat goal, yeah, I'm tracking what I'm doing, but I'm not so anal about it. Like I'm just enjoying the process, and like I kind of listen to my body. Like this week, I couldn't squat nearly as heavy as I could last week. And I kind of listened to my body, and you know, and I think there's a lot of good data trackers out there, but I think a lot of them are shit as well. And you know, I kind of take James's approach, man. Like my life's way too fucking short to be worrying about data. Like, you know what I mean? Now, having said that, now if I have a goal, like if I'm an athlete, if I'm going to do an Ironman, yeah, I'm going to track a little bit of data and do it smart. Now, I didn't do that the first time. The first time I did my Ironman, I was coming out of a really bad relationship. I was in a really bad headspace, mentally not there really well. I was in a transition period. I was doing okay in business. It was before I met my ex-wife. It was just kind of a weird period of my life. It was not a very nice, pleasant period. So I wasn't so concerned about data. I was more concerned about kind of learning about myself a little bit and just challenging myself and just seeing what I was willing to endure to get to a goal. So I could apply that to other areas of my life, because at that point I had failed relationship after failed relationship. Didn't have great relationships with my friends and my family. There was a lot of areas in my life that I was like, man, I probably need to put a little bit of effort into this and start readjusting how I, you know, some of my values and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I did it, man. Mine was way intrinsic, man. There was no external reward I was looking for. It was so intrinsic. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed my bike, getting my bike ready for the ride the next day. I enjoyed putting my bike on the back of my car, like mounting it. I enjoyed that. That was fun. Like going to play golf the next day, and you get your clubs ready, like, or going fishing, getting your gear and all your stuff ready the morning before, you get that excitement. And that's that dopamine that you get, like that excitement. And that's what kind of fuels you to do that stuff, is that it was fun. I enjoyed it. The intrinsic motivation is far superior to anything extrinsic in life, man, because that stuff wears off. And I think a lot of people are so extrinsically motivated that they get kind of lost, and they find themselves going from one thing to the next, trying to get, you know, happiness. And yeah, it's not about that. It's more about the intrinsic stuff, doing things because you enjoy doing them.
I agree. I think I don't know how I managed to get myself into it, but I did 100 kilometers run through over. I had to finish it in 7 days, virtual.
You said 100K run.
Yeah, with you had to do it over 7 days, so I did it in 6. But yeah, I had this thing in my head that I would get to the end, and there was going to be some friends at the end, like. and I'd have this elation, and I finished, and it was like, no, there's nothing. There was no happiness.
You get it. You get
There
it.
was, yeah, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Just and everybody was, oh my god, you've done it, mate. And I was like, eh.
You know that's a lesson. It's a good lesson too, man, because it's everything, man. It's like people think relationships are going to give them that completed feeling. They think the car, the whatever, the new clothes, the new whatever, the new shiny toy, the new possession, the new race, the new whatever. That's not what makes people happy, man. It's you know what I mean? Like it's fun. Like it's a good accomplishment, but being happy is just all about perception of in relationships, experience, having the new experience that you had, having new quality relationships with people. And yeah, the quality of life is down to the quality of the relationships that you have and the experiences that you have. And then just reflecting back on the effort you put into that 100-kilometer race, man. That's where happiness is.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed going out each day to do the distances that I'd set. We ran different. I did it with a friend. We ran different routes. I saw new places. Yeah, I was able to post about it every day. I hit new PBs within it. It was like all of those.
Did you feel like a runner? Did you feel like a runner?
I started to. Yeah.
That's the thing, is that you start to believe that you're that person. You're assuming that identity. You're assuming the characteristics and the physiology of a runner, and you're starting to enjoy it. So that's that whole idea of changing your own values and your own belief system about yourself, is that if you want to do that, you become that. And that's what you did. If you want to be an Ironman, you just become an Ironman. You just start assuming that you're that person. You be the guy that buys the cool ass riding kit, man. I was in like professional looking riding kit when I was training. And here I am. I'm like, I had a decent bike, but I didn't have anything special. And, you know, I'm sure people made fun of me, but I didn't care. It was so good, man. I loved it, man. It was so fun trying. It felt good, man. It felt really cool. I enjoyed it. I probably looked like a dork half the time. Man, funny story. I bought a new wetsuit for my Ironman because you get to wear a wetsuit, which is amazing.
Yeah, suddenly I realized that you can swim.
Oh, mate, you can swim for days with that thing on. Yeah. I can swim in freshwater, no problem. But when you're in the ocean in a wetsuit, you just float. Like, you're buoyant. Like, it's just a matter of going straight. But I remember when I first bought my wetsuit, I'd never put a wetsuit on in my entire life. I'm not a swimmer. I wasn't a swimmer before this. I go to the pool, indoor pool, and I wanted to train in it to feel what it felt like to swim in it. So I put it on. I go out and I swim. Man, I don't remember how long I swam. I swam for 45, 50 minutes. So it was a pretty decent swim. And I noticed that when I got done, some guys were like kind of laughing at me and looking at me. And I was like, man, what the fuck are these guys looking at? Sorry, I dropped an F-bomb. Sorry.
No, mate, it's always, I always mark it as explicit.
Man, I have to cuss because I taught for 6 years. I speak at schools all over, like all the time. So I can't cuss with those. So in my adult life, I have to cuss a lot, man. So I cuss quite a bit in my adult life. I have to.
It's all good.
But so I get out of the pool in the wetsuit, and these guys are like making fun of me. And right then and there, I looked down and I knew what I had done. The long tag was in front. And I was like, the wetsuit was on backwards, mate. I had put it on completely backwards. So I figured, I felt so embarrassed, man. It was so embarrassing. So
it is odd though. Why does it have to be zipped up the back? Why can't it be zipped up the front?
No, well, the reason I knew it was on backwards. In fact, I remember the guys laughing at me and trying to figure out why they were laughing at me. And I remember putting my wetsuit on a hanger in my closet. And as I was going to sleep, I was looking at it, and I noticed that one side of it had a flat back, and another side had a little arch, like from the neck, like this, like a shirt.
Yeah.
And like a little loop. And the back of it, other back was straight. It was flat. It was for a back. And I noticed that the tag, like a really long tag, it's long so you can grab it and zip yourself up like this. It's up for the front. And I noticed that the tag was on the back where the flat part is. So right then and there, I knew that I would put that wetsuit on backwards. I felt like an idiot, man. I felt like such an amateur.
It's all good. I went to the shorts that have got netting inside.
Yeah, I had those. Man.
I rushed into the gym. This is maybe 10 years ago, but I rushed into the gym to a spin class on a Saturday morning, hungover, and I missed like 2 sessions. And if I missed a third, then I wouldn't be allowed to book more classes.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, I've got to go. So I raced in, went to the change rooms, changed, put the shorts on. I'm on a bike. There's only one bike left in the room when I arrive, right in the middle of the class. And I'm doing the spin class. And all I can hear is these three women behind me giggling. And I was just like, God, they're having a mother's meeting in here. Just, they're just chilling out, having a right old laugh. Can't they be in here to work out? And then I leave and I'm like, right, bye, everybody. Blah, blah, down into the changing rooms. Walk straight in, mirror in front of me, and my netted shorts are on inside out.
No.
So and it was all the way through. All the way through, I was like, I can't get comfortable on this spin bike. What is going on? So, and it took me a few years to be able to go back to.
Are you ever falling off your bike?
Yes, when the clips are in.
I've done that several times, man. I ran into another biker one time.
It's like they do help, the cleats.
Yeah.
You forget about them when you've been on the bike for 3 or 4 hours.
Sure do.
And you just don't think you think you can just pull your foot off.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah, no, it's not that easy all the time, man.
No, it's not. So no,
where I live in Sydney, we're on a bike route. Like there's a lot of bikers all the time where I live, and every now and then you'll hear the occasional boom, like like people are falling off their bike. You can hear it, like it's total, like dozens of times. Like it's so fun. It's not. I feel bad, but I've been there, so I get it.
Yeah, that's it. And you've just got to laugh it off and get back on your bike.
Yeah. I had a couple pretty bad falls on the bike. The week before my Ironman, I broke my back gears, and it broke off, and it went into my spokes of my training tires, and it busted my rims. It busted one of my rims completely up. Yeah. Yeah, it was a bad day, man. It was about a $750 mess up right before my Ironman. So, but I got a new kit though, so it was all good. I got a new Dura-Ace, so it was nice, but it cost me $750.
It's a very expensive sport. It
is. And then when I got to Sydney, I had my road bike. I rode here for a while, 6 months, and it got so dangerous, man. So many incidents of me almost getting hit by cars, getting cut off, cars pulling out in front of me. Just dangerous, man, like riding in the city. So I sold my bike when my baby was, whenever my ex got pregnant with our child, I sold it because I was like, man, I don't want to fucking die. So
definitely not.
Yeah. So,
and that was the Ironman's a massive insight for me, but with your mindset is the other part that I'm really interested in. Being similar interests, fellow coach, but you've got a different kind of route with it in terms of you work a lot with children and their mindset and education, that side. How do children take to that, which is quite often seen as an adult learning?
Yeah, it is. So the biggest challenge that I see now is that most of the approaches right now are all reactive approaches, and not so much preventative. And since mental health hasn't really been, it's been more of I don't really want to call it a stigma, but it's just been one of those things that just doesn't get talked about enough, and it hasn't been in schools, and especially kids at a young age. Because if you think about it, we're the most moldable when we're younger. Our brains are the most neuroplastic when we're younger. When we're in our adolescence and we're children, right? Our subconscious is absorbing information from everywhere, and it doesn't know how to filter out the bad shit. It just filters out. It takes in everything, and your identities and your beliefs start getting formed at this very, very young, critical age, and it can go either way. It can be good or bad, right? So the problem is it's not good enough. Like it's bad a lot of the times, right? People have bad experiences and traumas and bad and emotional scarring, and that stuff sticks with people through their adult life, and it affects relationships, it affects business, it affects mindset, it affects everything in their life. And that's a problem, right? And that's why the suicide rate is so high in Australia and other countries. That's why there's a problem with men. There's a problem with men in suicide. There's this growing problem, and it starts at a very, very young age, and it starts, even down into 5, 6 years old, things start happening. And the challenge that I see now is getting kids to understand how critical the is at that developmental stage, and that the decisions that they make at that younger stage is really just science. Like the reason why kids are more risky and engage in risky behaviors and do stupid things and don't think about the consequences, because they're using this very old part of their brain that's and their critical part of their brain for problem solving is still developing. So the challenge is getting a kid that's critical part of their brain is still developing to think critically about something. You know what I mean? So like the challenge is trying to relate real life scenarios and put them in scenarios that are real life that they can relate to, that actually gives them an emotion. It strikes up an emotion inside of them where they have a connection, where they're like, holy shit, like I get that. Like I understand that. And the company that I speak for, they've been working with a lot of neuroscientists, like from Stanford, a guy named Andrew Huberman, very well-known neuroscientist out of California. And he has his own research lab. And what they're trying to do now is use virtual reality to put kids into stressful situations so they can understand how stress in the body and how the body responds to stress and puts you into fight or flight, and how thought alone can trigger that same exact response just by thinking of that. So that's the biggest issue is, and that's very exciting for me to hear about. That makes sense to me. And that's, if you can get kids to be excited about learning about the brain and how their thoughts do affect their response systems and how they behave and their emotions and stuff like that, you can get them to start being more aware of that. And I think that the number one reason why people change is the number one thing that people have to do to change is to be aware of something, right? If you're not aware of a problem, there's no way to fix it. So I think that just getting kids to be aware that their thoughts, that when they believe a negative thought or when they have something negative happen, that their body gets triggered in a certain way and emotions happen and certain behaviors happen in response to that. I think it's extremely important. And a lot of new studies are showing that like anxiety and depression is more of a response to adversity than it is a disorder. Because like anxiety is not contagious. It's not a disease. You don't catch it. You don't catch anxiety. You create anxiety, and you do that by believing your thoughts and by believing or being fearful of the future and projecting things from your past into your future. So if you can get kids to understand that thoughts alone can trigger these same responses, they can be more aware of that when these negative thoughts come into their brain. And that's what I'm passionate about. I mean, we get 60 to 90,000 thoughts per day, and 90% of those are negative thoughts, and they're recycled thoughts that you get every single day. So you can imagine kids that are struggling, in life, and they get these negative thoughts, and they don't have the capacity to understand and the awareness to be aware of that, that they don't have to believe them. Man, life can be very challenging, and they can suffer. People suffer, and they suffer. A lot of people suffer from that, and I did. So that's my biggest challenge, is getting kids to understand that they don't have to live a life of suffering. They can have a happy life, and they can pretty much create any reality that they want if they're clear on their intentions of what they want, if they have a method of doing that, and then they take the small, simple steps, and then, overcome adversity and overcome challenges when they fail, and understand failures are just lessons, man. But the biggest challenge is getting kids to be excited about learning about this stuff, because you're a 12-year-old boy at one point. I mean, shit, it was hard to get us to listen to things, man.
Yes.
It's a challenge.
Did you hear about the study or where the school and I can't remember where in the US it was, but they replaced detention with meditation?
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
they had amazing and it increased attendance rates,
Yes.
but significantly by like 70%. Kids were
Yeah.
wanting to go to school.
Well, yeah. Well, it's the systematic approach that schools take, and especially in the United. Now, I can vouch for only this in the United States and a little bit of Australia because I've seen both of them. Australia and the United States differ very. They have a big difference in their school systems. It's a very good school system in Australia. It's amazing here. More collaborative learning. It's less of that structured row environment. You know what I mean? Like it's that systematic way that school was taught in the States. It's an old approach and it hasn't been evolved. It has in certain areas, but as a whole, you have so many independent school districts that have their own say in how they develop curriculum and how they, present their curriculum to their students that there's not really a mandated way to do it for the whole entire country. So some schools get it right and some schools don't. But I think that one of the challenges is that kids aren't learning. They don't learn in that old school environment setting of rows of chairs and facing forward and learning from a lecture or stuff like that. Kids are more kinesthetic and they're so different. They're so tactile and they need to touch things and have experiences. And so, it's more of a collaborative thing and working with other kids and not being so old school in their approach. So one thing that I've found here in Australia, kids are a little bit more receptive to speaking and the message that I put out here. I think just based on the way their education is here in the country. But one of the challenging things is learning. Most people don't know how to learn, man, and it's a challenge, man. It's a challenge.
It's amazing how things can transition as well. That you at school, and I was saying this to a friend last night. I hated reading and I hated writing.
Yeah.
And I love reading and I love writing. And I do both through journaling, writing an email to my clients, taking learnings from books because we had identified it last night it's because I'm actually reading and writing about things that I want to read and write about.
That's right. Yeah.
Not because I'm told you must read this book and you must write about this thing.
That's right. Oh, schools failed us. Schools failed us, man. Schools not taught us how to be problem solvers and critical thinkers. I think that if people are relying on school districts to raise their kids, that's bad. Like, I didn't really learn until I actually cracked books and I had a life experience. It's probably why I didn't know what I wanted to do until I was 37 years old, because I didn't really have the capacity or knowledge at that point to make that decision. And it wasn't until I got really firm on my habits of reading and learning from my peers and being around people like James, man. Environment's huge. When you're around people like that have done very excellent things in life and have done very, things that, you look at it and you commend them for it. Like, I think that should spike an interest in you to find something that you can do well like that. You know what I mean? And that's what I've done. And it takes some time, but school has failed us. I mean, people are ignorant, man. Like, we have a lot of ignorant people running around, and I can say that I was ignorant for most of my life. And the opposite of ignorance is understanding. And the only way to gain understanding is through knowledge, and through knowledge is through study and reading and learning and applying and taking action. And most people are ignorant. Most people are unwilling to put the effort into reading and understanding and gaining knowledge. That's why you have a lot of people who just follow other people's opinions, and they only believe certain things because people that they respect believe them. And a lot of followers, and ignorance leads to doubt and worry, and doubt and worry leads to fear. Fear leads to it has to be expressed through the body, and that's anxiety, through the vibration in the body known as anxiety. Anxiety becomes a suppressed emotion. Suppression leads to depression. Depression leads to disease. Disease leads to decay, disintegration. That's Bob Proctor, by the way. Phenomenal human being. But you have these two pathways. You have ignorance, doubt, worry, fear, anxiety, depression, or you have knowledge, understanding, acceleration, faith, growth. And most people choose this other pathway where it leads to their basically to their demise. And people are willing to do it, man. I think somebody, I can't remember who said this, but like they said 95% of the, or 2% of the people in the world think, 3% of the world and the people think they think, and then 95% of the world would rather die than think. Which is pretty extreme, but I think that's pretty true, man. I think most people are unwilling to study and to learn and to grow.
Well, and it's not that I'm not driven by money, but why is there only one? Why is most of the world's wealth shared between 1%? Yeah,
they understand intrinsic motivation. They understand that, it's so easy to attain things in life. It honestly is. There's no secret, man. I think that people are waiting for. I think most people's problem is that they're waiting for motivation. They're waiting on some type of catalyst to motivate them to take action. And it doesn't happen that way. Motivation does not come before action. It never has, never will. You take action and that creates motivation. Motivation is not something you have or you don't have. You must create it. And the only way to do that is to take action. And then when you take action and you get a little bit closer to a goal or take a step, that's when that dopamine reinforcement comes in, that chemical reward. And that's when you can start, really riding that wave, is that improving each day and riding that dopamine wave and understanding that the process is like where the magic is, man. The growth, there's no end result, man. There's no end result. Once you reach a goal, the goalpost just gets further and further away. And when you really embody that, you really realize that life is not about a destination. It's all about a journey and like learning and growing and being just a little bit better. And people don't reflect enough on what they've done in life, man. Like when you sit down, if you want to feel good about yourself, sit down and write down things you've done well over the last 10 years or where you're at in comparison to 10 years ago. I think a lot of people will be a lot more proud of themselves than what they give themselves credit for. It took me doing that to really sit down and be grateful for what I've done in the last 5 years is writing out some of the things that I've done.
Well, just you saying that to me, my brain was like, ding, ding, this.
Man.
And it just starts to, you realize how much you've achieved in those, 1,800 days for, 5 years. It's like, and the stuff you remember is probably only 5% of the stuff you did. It's probably only the big.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. Yeah,
nobody writes down their wins. Nobody writes down their wins at the end of the day. What was great about today?
Yeah.
Even if you have to think about the smallest of things, I beat that light at the traffic lights, or I laughed at that joke. You find the small things, and and I did a little bit of work with Paul Moore, and have you done some stuff? Yeah, you've done some.
I'm in his Mansformation program right now.
It's amazing.
Are you in the Mansformation?
No, I did Unstoppable 28. I did it twice. So Mansformation is the next stage.
Yeah, he is right here, man. This is Unstoppable Planner. Yeah, man, it's a good one. It's good. Man. I tell you what. 2 years ago, I sent him a message and I said, man, I was like, I'm in a really bad spot in my life right now. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, but I can't. There's nobody else in the world that can help me but you. I was like, I don't know what I need to do to work with you. I was like, but tell me what I need to do. And no bullshit, for the next 30 minutes, he proceeded to have a conversation with me on the phone. And then like from there, I did the Unstoppable 28 program. And then, I went to Mansformation. And that's when I really started things in my life, started putting things together. I've done some really good things in life, man. But hell, I'm in a new country going through a divorce, rough period. I had a failed business. I wasn't doing amazing. I've been doing some good things, but I wasn't doing amazing in my businesses that I was starting. It was a struggle, man. And then divorce was hard. I have no family here. So, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's just me. Yeah. So it was a difficult time. And he kept my head above water and gave me some hope. And then his coaching style, that's how I coach, man. Like the way he coaches me and what he gets out of me, that's how I coach my clients, man. Like I give them tough love, but at the same time, I don't allow them to be victims, and like, but I get the best out of my clients because of the coaching that I've gotten from him. And he's one of many people that.
I was
What's
watching
that?
yesterday of some of his stuff on YouTube from like late 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And you can even see his personal growth.
Yes, man.
How much different person he is. Like, his face is half the size.
Yeah,
But
well,
the way he speaks, he's
Yeah.
less nervous. He's mentioning much better stuff now. So, and I think with a coach is if you can see them on their own journey,
yeah,
it might just be slightly behind them, but you should always be, moving with them in a way. But
well, here's another thing that I think is important, especially for you, since you've seen him coach and you do pretty much kind of what he does, is that the way he coaches his clients and his methods, that's the same methods that I use. I do it my own way, but the way he coaches, man, like, I don't know, I love this 28-day Unstoppable program. The way that's run, and like the daily activities you have to do, the trainings, the live trainings, the Q&A. I really enjoyed that. And man, he's such a good coach, man. He got a lot out of me. He got a lot out of me, and yeah, the transformation's full on. Like, it's full on. It's sometimes become a little overwhelming. So, but it's good. Yeah.
But if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
Yeah, that's right.
But he mentioned something on a video yesterday that I watched. So, mate, I'm soaking in everything from everywhere all the time, and I'm studious about it, and I think that's what you have to be. But he even mentioned this thing of all these people say, I've read this book. Tell me 6 things you learned from that book. Nobody can tell you.
Yeah, right.
Because they're not actually taking it in. They're not then writing things down. They're not then saying, "Oh, that was interesting. Let me research that more."
Yeah.
And I think you have to make it like, I never did a degree at university.
Yeah.
I see that is my degree. If I'm reading a book, a personal development book, it has to be for study. I almost set it out as study time rather than just reading. And I like to research it, and I like to think, okay, what does that word mean? Why did they mention this?
I will say this about reading. It's good to read fiction as well.
Yeah. I'm just talking if you're reading personal development or non-fiction, then
right. Yes.
Make that studious. But if you're reading fiction just to improve your reading, enjoy it.
I like reading fiction, man, and I like watching fiction stuff because it helps me construct in my mind. Because if you can read a fictional book, a novel, or watch something fictional, and you creating realism out of something fake is the same concept as you creating something in your life that's not there currently and constructing that in your mind to a physical reality. Exactly. So you actually reading fiction is helping you construct something real out of something that's not currently in existence, because it's not real. That's not real situation. But when you make it real, it's the same manifestation and visualization. Same thing happens in your brain. Same neural connections. So that helps with you being able to visualize the reality in your life that you want to create. So that's why it's important to not get to be a success zombie, is what they call it, where you're only reading personal development, when you're only absorbing information that's study. You have to have something that is like the opposite, like the polars, right? So you have to have something that is kind of different than that.
So you've just got to do it for enjoyment sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, man. And you have to. You have to. Yeah.
Life is not here to just be about growth. Sometimes you just got to stop and be, and that for me is was about taking. I had to learn to take that step back and do less hours at work and be able to. And I've got such a better life now. When I found balance at work and in my hours I was working, I found balance in my diet. I found balance in my time shared with friends, families, relationships.
It's inner CEO and inner monk. You have to find the balance. Yeah, you have to find the balance between inner CEO and inner monk and be able to go back and forth when you need to, man. It's good, man. It's such a, if you can figure out how to do that and and not overcorrect, because I think a lot of people overcorrect is that they get in that inner CEO mode for a long time and grind it out for weeks at a time. And then they get burnt out and then like they can't do anything for a month because they're just fried. That's what I historically have done to myself. So now I have to do it weekly. If I grind 3 days out of the week, 2 days or 3 days out of that week, I'm not doing anything. I'm just relaxing, training, and just doing my thing, reading, but not working hardcore.
I had a real realization when I was training for triathlon, and my coach gave me my plan, and it was 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
Yeah,
rest and recovery week.
That's right.
And he knew exactly what was going to happen, but I got to week 5, and I carried on training.
Yeah, of course.
He was seeing my score on my heart rate belt, and he messaged me and he said, "Recovery?" ? And I was like, "Yeah, but I feel good." And he said, "Okay, tell me that at week 8. Tell me that at week 8. Tell me that."
Yeah.
So we got to week 7, week 8, whatever it was, and I was like, "Mate, I'm so tired." And he went, "Told you."
Yeah.
And I realized that from I also box. Why is it boxing 3-minute rounds, 1 minute off, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off? And I took those lessons from those two things, and I've realized how many things it's in. It's the 80-20 rule or whatever.
Yeah, man.
That you need that time off with everything. And you can only really go hard for 75%, 80% of the time.
Well, I was about to say, even like when you're working, you should work 40 minutes and take like a 8-minute, 10-minute break. Like you shouldn't even work past 40 minutes at a time. Like when I'm reading and stuff, like I'll take a break every 40 minutes. Like even 20 minutes.
The Pomodoro technique I use, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I use sometimes it's 20, 25 minutes.
And it's so much better.
Yeah.
You get that done in that time. You get to yourself a finish point. And 5 minutes off isn't a long time, but it's enough to get up, make a drink, go downstairs, put the washing on, whatever.
Yeah.
And you realize because you're not stopping doing anything, you're just changing what you do.
That's exactly right. You can get other stuff done.
You get loads of stuff done. You don't get to the end of the day and think, "Oh shit, I didn't do the washing. I didn't empty the dishwasher. You did it all." And you didn't even realize you were doing it half the time.
That's right.
Plus, you got your steps up at the same time because you were moving. So,
man, that's one thing I don't worry about here, man. I walk everywhere here, man. I've got to be 15, 20,000 a day on average, at least. I walk all day. Which I like it.
Do you find that walking gives you headspace as well?
Love it, man. Love it. Especially since I just got earpods. I finally got them. Or AirPods, whatever they are. The AirPods. I was reluctant to buy them because I'm not historically good with things like that. Yeah, man, I just get in the zone, man. I am at the point now with meditation where I don't have to be in like a corner of a room, like in a dark room. I can meditate walking. I can meditate any time of the day if I want. Yeah, I pretty much stay in meditation most of the day was what I've come to find, is that I'm consciously aware of my environment, but I'm like in a very deep delta state most of the time.
When I went to a mentor for meditation, I went every week for a year.
Yeah.
Every Saturday morning, and I learned so much about how you can just do it. You arrive at your destination, you stop, you observe the building, you take it in, what the people are doing, you can calm yourself. You're making a drink, you can listen to the spoon hitting the cup, focus your mind on that. You can go into more meditative state and lie on your mat in your front room and be there for 30 minutes, but you can do a minute, 5 minutes. You can adjust your breathing.
I reckon I meditate most of the day.
And I think that's so important for people to know about with meditation is it's not just lying on the floor or sitting in a meditation pose.
Right.
It's about quieting your mind 90% of the time so that you can think clearly when you need to.
Bringing your awareness back to the present moment. It's bringing your awareness back. It's keeping it coming back, keeping it coming back. The more you can keep it coming back, and the longer you can go in between times of where it's going to a different topic, that's meditation. It's just bringing your conscious awareness back to the present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love it.
One of the ways that I started to understand it was the meditation mentor saying to me, there's a reason. The reason why you meditate is to rest your brain. She said, because you rest your body by going to sleep. She said, but when you go to sleep, your brain doesn't turn off.
That's right.
It's more alert because it's having to be, because it's safety and defense.
That's right. It absorbs information.
It's absorbing information. It's dreaming.
Yeah.
So it's actually hyper at nighttime.
Mm.
So when are you going to give your brain its 8 hours of rest, as well as giving your body its 8 hours of rest? And that was like a real moment for me. It was like, okay, actually, I need to give my brain a break.
Yeah.
It's time for the brain to sleep. And that, and the other thing was, have you ever done the raisins, the piece with meditation?
No, I haven't.
It was the first thing I did with her. So I don't know if you have them in Australia, but the little packets of raisins, little cardboard box that kids have, and they've got to get the finger. So if you got some raisins and you put them on your hand, and she says, you've just arrived on Earth and you found these things. What are you going to do? And you sit there and you look at them and you think, well, and she was like, you don't know what they are. So, and you start to smell them.
Your senses.
Yeah, and she's like, what do you smell? I'm like, okay, sweetness, but and then you touch them. She's like, how do they feel? The texture? Are they all the same? And you go through then you say to her, and I think everybody I've done it with have all said, can I eat them? I don't know, can you? And then they taste it, and you see them nibbling. How does it taste? And then they chew it, and people realize that you get an explosion of like juice in your mouth that you don't normally get. People are like,
really?
Yeah, you don't, like, when you're actually eating one, you think, God, that was juicy. I don't normally taste that. Or
just because you're that aware of what you had in your hand.
No, and well, where does it go? And then when you stop the exercise, you say, how long did you just think about raisins for? And they're like, 6, 7 minutes. Or they don't know, or they say a couple of minutes, and you say to them, you were thinking about raisins for 6 or 7 minutes. Did you think about anything else in that time? And they're like, no. And it's just and that shows you how you can meditate in different ways.
That's crazy, man.
I love it. I think that is the one, and I share that with everybody.
That with my school kids.
Yeah, you could. That would be brilliant.
Man, I think I'm going to, man. I think I'm going to.
Yeah, you can do it. And all you've got to do is invest in some little packets of raisins.
Easy.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, I share that with everybody. That's one of my favorite.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and you can do it with everything. Making your cup of tea, you listen to the kettle boiling, you notice the steam coming out of the kettle.
Man, thoughts. You're not thinking about anything. You're very present. That shows you how powerful thoughts are. Like, because everybody's out there suffering from believing their thoughts, man. Projecting really negative experiences into their future, projecting anxiety, or creating anxiety just by believing their thoughts. I mean, one of the most fascinating things that I learned, and that I thought was just phenomenal, very good lesson. Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you're familiar with him, I'm not sure you're familiar with him.
No.
He made the comparison between animals and humans, and how we differ from animals and humans. An animal, for instance, a deer. Imagine a deer is in a forest drinking from a creek or a pond, and a predator approaches the deer, and the deer goes into a fight or flight response, and it flees and it runs away from the predator. As soon as the deer gets into a safe environment where it's no longer in threat, the deer almost immediately returns to homeostasis, into balance. The deer doesn't think about that event anymore. The deer doesn't project that negative experience, that traumatic experience, into its future. It doesn't go to bed that night thinking about what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, the deer returns to homeostasis and balance almost immediately.
Yeah.
Humans, on the opposite, just by thought alone, we can pre-experience and re-experience stressful, traumatic situations. Our brains store information so easily. Our neocortex is so big, it's like a supercomputer. It stores all these experiences, and then it projects it into your future. So when you start thinking about a negative experience or a negative thought, you actually pre-experience a trauma. And the trauma that you experience from believing a thought is far worse than if it actually happened. So humans, unlike animals, pre-experience and re-experience trauma. Animals don't do that. Not some animals probably have some, ability to remember things like dogs and stuff like that, but your normal animals like deers and stuff like that, they don't do that. So that's humans in itself, and that's, like I said before, the challenge with what we're trying to do with kids now is helping them understand that and making that connection that most of our problems are based around our thoughts and what we do with them, because your thoughts control your behaviors. And thoughts are, emotions, and that's the thing. Emotions aren't good or bad. Like, thoughts create an emotion. Emotions aren't good or bad. They're just messages. And yeah, so but that's the challenge is people believing their thoughts. So that's kind of what my coaching is built around. It's helping people with their not only understanding thoughts and where they come from, but what they do with them and how they can reframe any thought from their childhood or a belief that they have and reframe it to a new belief that they want, the one that they want. So, which I think is very powerful. And, if people understood that concept, I think that people could handle a lot more of their thoughts and deal with a little bit more trauma.
So you mentioned to me before that some of the work you do is with those in recovery.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting, place for me. If anybody had listened to the episode of the podcast I did on myself, but I went through that from not from anything hard, but from smoking far too much cannabis, which led me to a very dark place.
I've been down that road.
It's it's far more serious than people think. But I spent some time with people in recovery, post doing and just being around somebody that I've met as now a good friend, but he got me introduced to auricular acupuncture, so ear acupuncture.
Whoa.
Which is used for recovery, massive in the recovery, or it is in the UK, but
addiction recovery,
yeah. And he gave it to me. I was a client for a long time, and then I got qualified in it. But the addiction is a result of often the hard stuff that people haven't dealt with from previous. That can stem from the 6 or 7 year old boy or girl.
It does, man. Most of our problems are from our early childhood. We're just soothing ourselves. We're still soothing. We can't process trauma at a young age, so we bookmark it in our brains. Our brains bookmark trauma, and they're like, no, we can't handle it yet. We don't understand it, so we're going to deal with it when we're mature enough. And the problem is people have bookmarked so much trauma throughout their life that they haven't dealt with it, and now it's showing up in their life, and things trigger it. And that's the hardest part. And what you said, man, it's tough, man. Like it's difficult. You know what I mean? Early childhood stuff's been passed down through genes through you. Even there's generational stuff, man, that where people are more predisposed to certain habits and behaviors, and that's real. I have an addictive personality, and that's, man, my whole family's like that. All the men anyway, and yeah, and I think most people don't even get into the awareness part where they're aware of that they have this trauma and these emotional scars. And I think people don't like to think they have problems, which I think is probably one of the people's biggest problems, is that they don't want to have problems. But we all got them.
They're not willing to move into that acceptance space.
Yeah.
Once you do, the road, I mean, whether you look at recovery's 12 steps or any of the psychology stuff that whether it's the Sarah feedback model or anything like that, there's a point where you've got to get to acceptance. And once you do, you can start to deal with it, manage it, learn from it.
I don't think you ever it resolves. What you just said is you manage it. You don't get rid of these things. You just learn to manage it. That's what life's all about. It's not about getting rid of your trauma. It's not about getting rid of your, addictions. Like if you have an addiction that's going to kill you, yeah, but like it's managing these things better and being able to live your life free and not being bound to it. That's what it is, man. And that's the name of the game.
It's amazing where it comes up. So I had to reflect twice over the last couple of months on being in. So I did boxing, and I've been in sparring twice recently, where I've quit once, and I felt like quitting yesterday, because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't at the level I wanted to be at. My training wasn't coming through, but it was my actions that I was scared of, because I could see myself cowering over like the scared little boy. And when I relate that back to being bullied at school, I've never thought of in my adult life the effect the bullying at school has had on me. And in those situations, I've realized that little boy still lives.
That's right.
And you've got to be caring to that little boy and help him understand and
That's right.
come out from it. But I realized I never dealt with it. I just boxed it off. Maybe when I moved or I run away from it, and now 20 years later, 25 years later, it's coming out. Not in my day-to-day life, and maybe it is. Maybe there is actions where I'm scared, but in the sport that I love and I want to do, it's affecting me. It's slowing my progress.
Yeah, of course.
So you just don't realize where it's going to come out.
Man.
You don't.
It comes out in relationships. It comes out in everywhere. How you do one, I feel like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you have trauma in your life, it'll come out in anything, man. Like honestly, like I was kind of the same. Like there was times that I would quit sometimes, and give up when I was a little bit younger, going through stuff. And I still kind of sometimes get to that crossroads where I have to battle those demons when I'm in the middle of a workout or something, and it starts to get really painful, or I start to get to the point where I'm like getting like going to throw up or something. Like I got to push myself through things and overcome fears. But man, boxing is one of those sports, man. Like no matter how far you get into it, that anxiety is going to be there, man. Like it doesn't go away.
No.
It's such an unnatural thing to get punched in the face, man. No, it's not fun. And even in sparring, when you're protected with gloves and a face or a head mask, whatever, headgear, it still hurts, man. It still sucks. So it's not a lot of fun getting punched. It's still like that whole fear of just getting knocked out cold with one punch. And yeah, I get it. I get it, man. It's not fun.
It's not fun, but I think it's good to put yourself in, whether it's that or triathlon, or even just like you said, getting to the point where you feel sick in the gym, to move to these dark places sometimes, because it helps draw it back out and then helps you to be aware of it, accept it.
You need exposure. You got to have exposure to it. That's how I hit 200 kilogram squat the other day. The 3 weeks leading up to me hitting it, I just did it, and I knew I wasn't going to hit it those 3 times doing it, but I just wanted to feel it and feel the failure of it, and like feel the weight, and then it built my confidence just getting exposure. So every time you get exposure to what you're fearful of, you gain confidence and resilience. And like people who are afraid to swim, just getting somebody who's afraid to swim in the deep end of the pool and having them grab onto the ledge, and then day one is kick out 5 feet and then go back to the ledge. And the next day, go 10 feet out and then go 20 feet out and then tread water for a minute, whatever. Yeah, you have to face the fears to get over them, man. Or you're going to keep returning back to that familiar, safe place that like you go to whenever you get to that point of quitting. Like that's where you go back to what's comfortable, because you not being in that ring is comfortable for you, because you don't have to worry about getting knocked out or not performing. Yours is performing to your ability, which is also a fearful thing. Like that's the worst thing in the world, is not performing to what what you're capable of doing. And like you'll think about it at night, you'll think about it during your day. Like I get it. Yeah, it's tough. It's a mental thing for sure. But yeah.
So I agree with you that Yeah, fix that. Yeah, but sometimes it's reverse. If you fix your head, it fixes the body. But sometimes you fix the body first, and it starts to help you fix the head.
Me, it was not like that. I used to just be obsessed with working out in my body, and I didn't put any effort into my mindset. So I was a great athlete. I did well, but when it came down to performing under pressure, couldn't do it. Didn't have the mindset to do it. I would great in practice, great in preparation, and then as soon as you got into competition, I would fold because I never put the effort into my mind. Growing resilience and having a good mindset about things. I always kind of took the easy way out.
The
I think
path to the
that's
least resistance.
And that's exactly the opposite of what you should do. David Goggins, I don't know if you got into him or not, but he's like,
Yeah.
I go the exact opposite. He's like, I'm going to find the hardest way to do something, and I'm going to do that.
Become
Now,
a
one
savage.
thing that I will say, I'm so stubborn and selfish that and I guess you can call this insane a little bit, because if I failed at something, I would do it over and over and over again until I figured out a way to do it. Even if I kept making the same mistake over and over again, I would do it. And I would just, once I became aware that I'm not going to keep being able to do the same thing and get a result. So I got to change something. That's me being stubborn. So I'd always reach goals like that, but it always did the hard way, man. I always did the hard way. So I guess in a certain way, I did take the hard route most of my life. But
that's
I guess
because you've got a growth mindset, and not a fixed mindset.
I guess you're right, man. I've done everything the hard way in my life, man.
Yeah, and I used to think that I always did things the hard way, but I'd often think sometimes I was the victim. Oh, we were always the guinea pigs at school. They always changed the course just for my year.
Mate, I'm a victim mentality master, man.
Yeah, I was definitely that until you realize that it's just life. Life is going to throw shit in your way, and it's up to you about how quickly and easily you move it away.
Yeah, you can't have your existence in resistance, man. Like, if you're victim mentality and you think the world's out against you to get you, here's the deal, man. At the end of the day, everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's trying to create happiness for themselves. So it's nobody. If you're a victim of something or somebody, you have taken the power away from yourself to create the solution. So if you blame somebody else or something else for something that happens to you, you've now given all the power to that person or that thing, and you have no control over the solution. So if you're never a victim of anything, and if things happen, you can find the meaning, then that's what it's all about. And that's what Paul Moore in the Mansformation, one of the golden nuggets is being able to master meaning is superpower. Being able to master meaning is superpower. Because meaning comes from perception. And perception comes from a lot of different things. That how you perceive things is the level of your training and your maturity. And then being able to create a meaning out of something is a superpower. And the meaning of something is it's a what did he say? It's like a fantasy. You can make it whatever you want. You can create any meaning out of anything. Like, you can take any situation that happens to you, and it can be a fantasy that you've created in your mind of what it means to you. And it can mean that, and that's fine. So whatever something means to you may not mean the same thing to me. So being able to create meaning and understand that you can create meaning out of everything is a superpower. And no, what he said was the meaning that you give is in your imagination. So how you imagine things to be. Because everybody's perception is different. Your perception of an event will be completely different than mine. You may gain something from an event, and I may lose something, right? But you gaining something may be a bad experience, or me losing something may be a really good experience for me. So being able to create meaning is a superpower. And when we're able to do that, you look at life and you're not a victim of anything. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're not a victim of anybody or anything, man. And that's a powerful situation to be in. Growth happens when you're able to be in that situation where you're not a victim anymore. And you're just, you're a creator. We're a creator. We're not victims. We're creators. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's a victim.
Carve your own path.
We're creators, man. You can take even a really awful, horrific situation, a death, a murder, whatever, and you can create a meaning that's positive out of that. And you know what I mean? Like, if you're a victim and you be the victim, you'll always be a victim of that, and that'll always control you, and you won't be able to get past it. But if you're able to control the meaning of it, yeah, it's huge, man. It's kind of what life's all about, is being able to take any situation and create meaning out of it.
So true. It's, and just, it's amazing when you have these conversations with, so I'd encourage anybody to work with a coach.
You have to.
Whether somebody goes to Paul or to yourself or to me. Right. And sometimes you need a coach for a triathlon, plus you need a coach for your head, plus you need a coach to keep you accountable. You need good people in your corner that aren't close enough to be your friend, because your friend's too nice to you, and they'll call you out in your shit.
Yeah, that's right.
And they'll guide and they'll mentor you. And it was, they're slightly ahead of the game. They've carved the path for you, enough for you to form that path yourself.
The greatest accomplishments of my life have come on the back end of good coaching and good mentoring. And coaches have coaches. I have too. I invest a lot of money into my mentoring and my self-development. I'd be probably dead in a ditch right now if it wasn't for some of my coaches, man, if I'm being completely honest with you. There's been some pretty dark times in my life where I had to make a phone call that was tough to make, and I had people under that line that cared. And that's one thing about James, and why I'll always be close to James, is because when I was going through some of the toughest times of my life, James Smith, almost 1 million followers, took the time out of his day every single morning to message me and ask me how I was doing. He was like, mate, he's like, what are 3 things you're grateful for? What are you doing today? What is something you're happy about? What is something you're looking forward to this week? Every single day was something different, and he made it he made effort to make sure I was okay. And he was like a mentor to me, and he's 10 years younger than me. So, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Paul's 8 years older. James is 10 years younger, and those 2 guys right there were probably the reason why, I'm what I'm doing now in my life. I'm very grateful for both of those human beings.
I could credit the same people.
Exactly.
And there's more. I mean, even like the guy I use for boxing, he's 24 years old. When I started working with him, he was 18 or 19. But his experience, he's been boxing since he was 6 years old. He's a professional boxer. What he can teach me about boxing, no matter how young he is, but the things he teaches me isn't just how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
He teaches me so much more. There was one thing that sticks with me that he said to me, and I can't believe how powerful it was. And I was in the trenches and I was struggling, and he just said to me, you can do anything for 2 minutes. And I was like, you're right. And that's not just helping me in boxing, but when somebody says to you, I'll be with you in 2 minutes, you think, okay, they're just around the corner. They'll be with me. And what can I do in that 2 minutes?
That's right.
I can do a bit of dishes. I can quickly hoover the floor. I can, read a couple of pages in my book. 2 minutes is a long time, but it's also very, you can do anything for that time. And that was just, it just stuck with me. And I told him, I was like, do you know how much impact on my life you had?
Life happens in like 2 minute increments or something like that, in like frames.
Yeah, it really does.
Life's all about frames, yeah.
And we all set things for. I had a business coach that used to set meetings to start at like 8:37 a.m.
I love that.
And they'd be like 11-minute meetings.
Love it.
And I was for a while it took you to adjust, but they were 11-minute meetings that started at 8:37, and the next one would be like, okay, the next meeting was scheduled. That's for Friday, and that's at 12:07.
I love that, man.
But he got so much more done. You were there on time. You never got there late, because it was a really different in your head. You remembered it. You gotta get to maximize your time and get the most out of it.
Yeah, I got a lot of to-do lists, man. I make a lot of to-do lists. I have to. I'm so driven towards to-do lists. So
because you're a creator, you create all these ideas in your head, and you put them on paper, and that's but if you've got those to-do lists to do, I better let you go. That's you've given me a lot of time.
It's good talking to you.
I've loved it, and I'm, it's 10:30 a.m. here. I think it's 9:30 p.m. for you.
Yeah, it's like 9:30 p.m. here, I think.
You're going to bed. I've got a whole lot of stuff that's inspiring me to go and put together.
Yeah, I'm going to sleep, man. I got a big start of the week next week. So,
but I just wanted to say thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And
yeah, man, enjoyed it.
Let's stay in touch.
Do it.
I just want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you've got something out of this episode. We'll be back tomorrow night. So this is episode number 5 of the week. Tomorrow's number 6. We're trying to wrap up for the week. We're at 72 episodes since I started in May. 10,000 listens. That doesn't happen without the listeners, and I really appreciate it.
Good stuff.
But we'll be back, and then we'll put a strategy together for 2021. So thank you for your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
It's Alistair here. Make sure you fucking like this, share it. Not a charity. Down £9 a month because you bastards. So get this out there. Get this on the stories. And if you enjoyed it, if you haven't hit like, you like already. If you haven't hit share, hit share. There you go.